Before anyone starts imagining the worst, following my bicep injury last year, I sustained an elbow injury on the same arm during this camp. I had a treatment on it, and now we are here. I truly hope sense prevails. I will, of course, be fully cooperating with all relevant authorities, and I'm confident that the investigation will clear my name, and I'm not going to talk about this again, etc., etc. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. It's Abs of October Red, and we are back once again for news and reviews. Yesterday was a bit of a long one because I had to put in the inserts of the guys that gave the speech in the House. I think Oscar's come out and said something about it. It felt like it was one-sided, but look, like I said at the beginning of yesterday's news and reviews, if you've listened to it, a democracy gives you this fake hope and a veil that you've been given a choice because you're allowed to give your opinion. That doesn't mean that it's going to go your way. Sometimes when you're given a choice, it gives you two narratives, isn't it? But at the end of the day, they're going to decide whatever they want. And whether you get what I'm saying or not, I know exactly what I'm on about. So there we are. So we're going to park yesterday because that is ongoing. I see that the UBO is going to come through. It's created a lot of talk on X, which is great. We're all talking about the subject. I'm looking forward to speaking to the promoters of Queensberry and Matchroom. I'm going to try and get Wasserman on as well. If I can. Or are they even called Wasserman anymore? I think they're called MF Pro now. They've dropped the Wasserman, haven't they? Ooh, interesting. I want to get their points of view on it as well. Before I get into today's subject, which kind of sort of starts off with the cruiserweights, we've had Jack Massey, his manager Kevin Maree, who manages a lot of fighters, Callum Simpson, Jack Massey, and a couple of others. The names spring my mind. I'm actually looking at the pictures of them, but the name just slips my mind. Old age. He put up a post, Kevin did yesterday, Maree Management, Maree Boxing, and said, big news soon. Not fight news, but big news. So me with my conspiracy tinfoil hat head says, Zuffa. So I commented Zuffa with a question mark, and Jack Massey liked it. Yeah. And then I obviously put the post out on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and said, potentially, I said, I don't know, but is Jack Massey going to go to Zuffa? And it's created quite a storm. Troy Williamson's piped up and said, get out of there, get away from Ben and Boxer. You know what he's like. He's on one with them because obviously, he feels disgruntled that he wasn't allowed to fight on the Riyadh card the other day for Fury Makhmudov because he had contractual obligations to have the rematch with Callum Simpson. That rematch date's not yet been announced. Maybe there's some stuff bubbling underground with Boxer that we don't know about, where they're going to announce some fights and he'll be involved in that rematch. So there's that. But Troy Williamson, quite rightly so, pointed out, but Adam Azim, he needs to leave as well. He's not been fighting, etc., etc. And I said, let me look on his box rec. In 2023, I think Adam Azim probably had like 4 or 5 fights. Loads of fights, very, very active. Or was it 2022? And as the years have gone by, and obviously last year he only had 2 fights, the last one being in November when it was on a Riyadh card, a ring card, and it was against Scobie. Obviously he won that fight, but we've heard nothing since. So has he got a point? What is going on? Do we need some updates? Yes, we absolutely do. But we'll wait and see. Obviously Ben Shalom has his selective channels that he speaks to. So hopefully they'll be able to give us some news and information when their next card is out. I know they've got one in Holland. I don't believe Adam Azim is on that. Obviously they've got Gradus Kraus. He's boxing in Holland. That card's been announced, but I don't believe Adam Azim or Callum Simpson are on that card. So there we have it. We'll see. All the best to Jack Massey. Spoke to him once on camera, a couple of times off camera. What a really nice guy. Tough, rugged opponent. I always said I wanted him to fight CBS. If he goes to Zoffa, that's the fight to make. Will it be the first fight to make? I don't know. But potentially that's the fight to make. I'll probably say if they're both new signings, not to put them together yet. Do a little bit of tactical movement. Obviously CBS has fought Brandon Glanton already. Obviously everyone wanted CBS to fight Jai Patel. Jai Patel called him out, so that's a potential matchup. Should Jack Massey be going to Zoffa? I'm not saying that he is, but I probably wouldn't put him in with CBS straight away. I'd see what other cruiserweights they can, just let them have a couple of fights and then clash later on. Or is that me being silly? Is that me, thinking like a promoter, ripping off the boxing fans rather than letting them, collide potentially in 2 fights time instead of straight away? Have I been brainwashed into thinking a certain way, a strategic business way, rather than just going for the best fights and don't worry about if you lose, you can come again? It's weird, isn't it? Because if you'd asked me this a few years ago, probably even a couple of weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, just fight. Just get them to fight. I was one of them that really was advocating for Ben Whittaker to fight David Morrell Jr. as well, because I've been calling for that fight for ages, and I do believe they're a similar age, similar records as such, similar kind of wins. Obviously, Morrell's got the loss on his record, and Ben Whittaker's got the draw, controversial draw. So I thought, yeah, they'll be ready to fight, but the promoter said, like, no, not yet. Let's just build him. It's too expensive. We've got to protect our assets. And I kind of get that. But then as a fan, I sit back in the chair and I think, are we getting ripped off though? Because I don't really want to see him fight someone that I don't know, someone that I've not really studied. I'm not a purist, a pugilist as such, so I don't know this person. Yeah, he's fought that person, but look at what's happened to him ever since, And these are the little wars I'm having with myself. But then as an investor, would you think, yeah, I'm going to sign Jack Massey, I've just signed CBS, and I'll put them in together and one of them loses. I feel like I've lost a bit on my investment there. But it depends how they strategize their stuff. I'd love to sit down with Dana White and talk to him about his strategies and how he does things. It's a bit of an introduction, isn't it? Because really I'll come on here to speak about Lawrence Okolie. Excuse me while I cough. Back with you. When you exercise and you haven't exercised in a while, it just brings everything up. And obviously I'm having that CMOS as well. So yeah. Right, Lawrence Okolie then. And this is not a video to slate him or to slag him off or to jump on the bandwagon or kick a person when he's down. This is just a video. Basically, video, podcast, eargasm, ASMR, however you want to look at it. Just talking about the situation and what's happened and the circumstances of what's happened. And what's kind of sad, and I did say this on X, what I find that's sad is that because of what has happened with him, the whole card had to be postponed without a future rescheduled date. I think Tony Yoka's come out and said he's potentially going to be on May the 9th for another date, which is great for him. But there were other fighters on that card now that are not particularly Queensberry fighters. How many shows go on in France? If you're over in France, you can please tell me that I'm chatting rubbish and they'll be able to be out on another card in a couple of weeks' time. Then that's fine, but they're going to get the same compensation for that fight over there than they would have done under the Queensberry umbrella. So I'm sat at home, I'm thinking, am I going to do a watch along because obviously I'm not going to Paris. Let's face it, I'm not going there. Even though it is cheap to go there, probably cheaper than it is to go to London, but then you've got to think about accommodation and all that. So I was thinking, am I going to do a watch along? And I was hesitant. I was like, yeah, if I'm going to do it, it's only going to be for the last 2 fights. I did one last week. Is it going to be anything exciting? Well, it is Tony Yoka. He has changed his trainer. It's kind of like, let's see what he's like under, Don Charles, sparring with sparring with Dubois and other people that have been down to the gym, which I can see is quite plentiful. Don't want to do it. And I was like, kept on hesitating. And then all of a sudden, you just get the notice that Lawrence Okolie's tested like positive. VADA's resulted at like a positive, banned substance test. I'm like, oh, Lawrence Okolie testing positive for banned substances. And the statement comes out straight away from Queensberry, as it should, because you know what it's like. You don't want to leave it to rumourville. And the statement from Queensberry was, last night, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, aka VADA, informed Queensberry that Lawrence Okolie returned an adverse finding following an anti-doping test conducted ahead of the show in Paris this Saturday. A further update regarding the event will be made in due course. So I shouldn't say positive test, should I? Adverse finding. So I'm thinking, I think Frank Warren went on to TalkSport. They tried to, he said he was looking for an opponent. They were, they wanted a British opponent. I heard that David Adelaide, put himself forward and said, yeah, but you better pay me because it's like really short notice, whatever. Fair play, because he doesn't duck a fight. Adelaide will get in there with anyone. I do believe that he enjoys to fight. If he had like really good IQ, it'd be an absolute horror for the heavyweight division. He's got the personality, he's got the punch power. If you just really build on that IQ, monster. But anyway, that didn't happen. So Lawrence Okolie then, so I'm thinking, because I follow Lawrence, obviously, he's a fighter, follow him. He put out like, a picture of him sort of like lying down having blood tests with his eyes closed, quite dramatic. Before anyone starts imagining the worst, following my bicep injury last year, I sustained an elbow injury on the same arm during this camp. I had a treatment on it, and now we are here. I truly hope sense prevails. I will of course be fully cooperating with all relevant authorities, and I'm confident that the investigation will clear my name and I'm not going to talk about this again, etc, etc. So I'm like, okay, that's okay, fair enough. That's what we've got. So he comes out and defends himself like straight away. But I think, is it the Times? Somebody comes out with what the substances were. Now I need to get this up properly, because what I don't like to do is guess when it comes to the drugs, because I'm not really good at stuff like that. So let me have a look at this. So I did some research, as I do, because I haven't got a clue about what substances are legal, what substances aren't. So I think it was the Times or the Guardian, one of them. I'll try and put the source in the description. Said that he tested positive for its GHRP-2 and the M8 metabolite. Okay, so GH always stands for growth hormone. I think I can remember that part. I don't know what the RP2 and the M8 metabolite is, but metabolite is obviously like a chemical reaction that the body produces based on what you ingest. Like whatever you take, it turns into something else. Metabolite. So they're both linked to growth hormone related substances, often discussed in sports, bodybuilding and anti-doping contexts. Now this is Google, okay? This is me doing research on Google. This is not a scientific analysis. I do not know enough about these drugs or any drugs to be able to give you a scientific breakdown myself. To go and Google it yourself, yeah? But this is what I found. So GHRP2, growth hormone releasing peptide 2, that's what it stands for. It's a synthetic peptide that stimulates the body to release growth hormone, the GH. It works by activating the ghrelin receptor the same pathway linked to hunger hormone signaling. The effects that people associate it with is increased growth hormone levels, potential fat loss, muscle growth, recovery support. It's not approved for general medicinal use in many countries and is commonly found in the research or grey market. It's banned in professional sport by organisations such as WADA, which is the W one. So, okay, fair enough. That doesn't sound too good. So the M8 metabolite. So the M8 metabolite is a breakdown product of the GHRP2. So what your body, like I said, what your body turns it into after use. So it's a byproduct of the GHRP2. And it's important because anti-doping labs often don't just look for the GHRP2 itself. They look for metabolites like the M8, which can stay detectable longer. So in simple terms, like I said, the growth hormone RP-2 is a substance taken, and the M8 is the trace it leaves behind in the body due to like that chemical reaction. So in drug testing, detecting M8 can prove prior use of GHRP2 even if the original compound, which is the GHRP2, is no longer present. So even if that's disappeared, if you produce that M8 metabolite, they're basically saying the M8 metabolite is a direct derivatory or a byproduct of GHRP2. So even if that's not in your system, the M8 will prove that it was, because it's a direct metabolite of it. This is why athletes can still test positive after the main substance has cleared. So it shouldn't be in a legitimate prescribed medical injection for injury recovery. It shouldn't. In the UK and most countries, injury recovery injections are things like corticosteroids that reduce inflammation. Is it hyaluronic acid, joint lubrication, platelet-rich plasma, PRP, your own blood factors. Now I've spoke to fighters that have had that, their own platelets injected into, I think it was either a shoulder injury, and basically it's just like an influx of your own blood so it can build it back, recover using your own stuff basically. And sometimes they use local anesthetics, but I think that's hydrocortisone maybe. So these are regulated, prescribed and widely used in clinics, but they're saying that the GHRP2 isn't part of that group. It's a research peptide. It's not an approved medication. That's the GHRP2. It's not licensed by regulators, such as the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency or the Food and Drug Administration. It means it's not on NHS and it shouldn't be in prescriptions from regulated clinicians. Where you might find it though is private or performance clinic, anti-aging peptide therapy providers, bodybuilding or underground sources. These operate in a grey or unregulated space, and what's actually in the injection isn't always guaranteed. So basically the bottom line on that, if it's legitimate medical injection from a regulated doctor, it shouldn't contain the GHRP2 or anything that produces the M8 metabolite. So that's like the Google research that I've done on it. Like I said, I'm not an expert. That is just me reading straight from Google. Now, when you've got injuries and you're receiving any kind of chemical external treatment and you are subject to VADA or VADA, UCAD, whatever it is, you fill in the form, don't you? I think they call it TUE. So it declares everything that you've been taking. So you will write, I don't know, what you've had for tea, any changes to your diet, any medication that you're on, etc, etc. So they're pre-warned of what's coming their way. Now, was that form filled in? Was it filled in? I don't know, I'm not there. Was it filled in correctly? Was something omitted? Yeah. Who is around Lawrence Okolie that goes and looks through, you know, all of the stuff that he has, all of the stuff that he takes? Who's his nutritionalist? Who's he been using for the recovery of, you know, the injury recovery? He had the bicep tear, and then he sustained the elbow injury as well. So who's he been using for that? There are so many unanswered questions here. It is in its investigative stage. Yes, you know, it's black or white. Have you tested? Is there an adverse finding or not? The answer is yes. I'm presuming that it will be 2 samples. Which sample they've released, A or B, I don't know. You can't have one unless you've used the other. Unless miraculously the M8 metabolite is from something that's legit and his body's just converted it that way. But according to Dr. Google, like I said, it's only as good as the information that you put into it. Is there an error there? Personally, you can look at, you know, people and you can say, oh, you know, I don't think they'd ever do that. But under guidance of, you know, potentially experts, are they going to question the expert, or they're just going to say, okay, that's going to help with my injury recovery? Is that okay to use? Am I going to be all right to use that? Because obviously I have to have drug tests because of my, you know, status in boxing. Yeah, it's fine. And you take the word for it. And then look, now potentially you can, you know, you can end up losing your whole career over trust. Yeah, it's crazy, because they're saying that based on that, potentially the consequences after a full investigatory period, and everyone is entitled to that, I think the maximum is, you know, a 4-year ban. We've had a fighter recently test positive for THC, and he's received a 3-month ban. Not performance enhancing, however, they deem it to be a drug that shouldn't be allowed to be used. He took the fight on short notice. He got tested for that, and then he's got a 3-month ban. 3-month ban, okay, yeah, you can deal with that. Yes, it's a scar on your boxing record. But 3 months compared to 4 years, that is serious. Lawrence has worked hard. He's become a world champion at cruiserweight, at bridgerweight, and was working his way to do the same thing at heavyweight. This could have really detrimental consequences on his career. I think he's potentially 30, 31, 32. So 4 years on top of that. Is he missing out on his, you know, what potentially could be his prime, his opportunities? And I think all these things need to be taken into consideration. So it's a bit of a bummer for him, but here we are. It's the early stages. It's just come out. Let's see what happens. Let's see it play out. Please research the substances that were reported by the tabloids. I believe that information's been given to them or leaked to them via the drug testing agency, because when Frank Warren was asked, he was aware, but he wasn't prepared to comment on what they were. And it's a shame for the promoter as well. You know, I'll talk about the fighters losing out. The promoter, because they had to make the really tough decision whether or not to continue the show based on, you know, ticket sales, how many refunds they were going to have to give, how much they were going to have to pay out the fighter for potentially a card that wasn't going to create enough revenue. And they made the decision to lock the card off. We had a similar situation with a fight being taken off the main bill, obviously not due to drugs, due to injury. At Matchroom, they were in the same boat and they continued the show, you know. So it's tough. Those decisions, when you have to sit down and weigh it up, it's tough on them as well. What I think, and I've said this before, if you test positive, or there should be some kind of compensatory order pending the results of the investigation on its closure, that you should have to pay the promoter and the other fighters, because they've lost out. They've lost out on paydays. If the fighters get rescheduled in a certain amount of time, Yeah, you can't argue with that because, okay, you know, it's a quick turnaround for them. But what about the fighters and how much money they've spent in the camps? You know, sometimes if you touch people where it hurts the most, and with prize fighters, it's always going to be money, then maybe they'll think twice about what is going into their body, or think twice about who they have around them that assures them that things are safe when potentially they're not, in the name of expertise. Look, this is just my opinion. The test results are in black and white, and we'll have to see how it plays out. So the other thing I wanted to speak about and just touch on briefly is, I think it was once again on TalkSport, who are now sponsored by DAZN. Congratulations, a lot of people getting sponsored by DAZN. They had on it's the Ben Whittaker, isn't it, Prince Naseem, on there talking about, while they were, you know, talking about Ben Whittaker, there was early comparisons that Ben Whittaker was asked about, and he said that he didn't watch his fights because people were saying, oh, he's very Naseem-esque, the flamboyancy. I think one time he must have wore the animal print shorts as well, boxing shorts, so there was all that kind of nostalgia, the ring walks that he had, all of that stuff, because Ben Whittaker is a performer, a natural performer. It suits him, that's his style, that's who he is. But I think Prince Naseem would have took offence with him saying, oh, I've never watched any of his fights. I mean, he might not have. I've watched Naseem fights, but I'm older, so I was around when they would have been on the TV live back in the day when we had a beautiful 5 channels or whatever it was. So he said he doesn't want to talk about him, doesn't want the comparison, etc, etc. Are we giving Ben Whittaker a hard time as boxing fans? Are we giving him a time to grow? Are we blaming him for potentially not pushing up the levels instead of potentially looking at the promoters? There's so much to, you know, discuss here. Ben Whittaker, from the beginning, I was there when he signed with Boxer. You know, they won the bidding war that seemed to be going on with Matchroom and Boxer to get Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker went after the one that offered the most money, the traditional Sky TV broadcast, the usual stuff that comes in with it. And, you know, he was promoted very well, albeit he did a lot of the stuff himself because he can sell. He's that kind of guy. He does it well. He's got his brain, his marketing strategy. You can't give that down to any of the management. That is Ben Whittaker. He's already got the audience. He built that himself because of his style, his flamboyance and what he did. Created a few highlight reels. It's the beginning of his career. Why should he be in really tough fights, you know? He's a silver Olympic medalist at light heavyweight. Yeah, that's his crown. That's what gave him leverage. That's what gave him the ability to be in a bidding war for promoters to want him on their platform. Okay? When Galal Yafai turned pro, I was also at that press conference. And Galal Yafai went into fight for the WBC silver, I believe, and his first fight was a 10-round fight. I don't know who the other person was, I can't remember that, and you can shoot me down in the comments if you want. Oh, you can't even remember his opponent's name. No, I can't. But it would have been somebody that was ranked or moved into the ranking systems for him to fight. Straight off the bat, no messing around, that's what he did. That was with Matchroom. Okay? Now, Matchroom didn't have Ben Whittaker, so he's been managed, promoted, done a certain way. Fought a couple of people that we didn't really know who they were until he came up against Liam Cameron. Controversial draw last time with obviously Leggate. Came back, knocked him out, did what he should have done in the first fight, or what people presumed that he would have done in the first fight. So he's kind of there. Then after that, obviously, he moves over to Matchroom. So you've got this ready-made package, but it's not made the way you want it to be. because you've got a path that you would have put him on should he have been yours in the first place. But now you've got to test him to see where he is, because you also watched that first Liam Cameron fight. So you believe he's a star, you do believe in his capabilities, you do believe that he'll make the business money because of his flamboyance, because of the potential skill that we've seen in the amateurs and against lesser opponents in the pros, and he's got a huge social media following. So if he's your fighter, he's therefore advertising you as a promoter, as a brand, because he's got a massive following on social media. So they're in a predicament, and that predicament is, okay, do we throw him to the wolves? I know we've kind of like got over on losing your O, and he's kind of lost his O when he had that draw, but he's an investment, and I can't stress how important it is, whether it's right or wrong. In the boxing community, I'm sure you'll all have your opinions, whether it's right or wrong. Are they now just testing the water with him before they start to put him in against serious names? Now obviously he's boxed this guy that took the belts, that won against Lyndon Arthur, and to me that wasn't the Lyndon Arthur that we know. Lyndon Arthur, sometimes he switches off in the ring, and he's had a couple of bad performances, but he's a very good boxer. So the Lyndon Arthur of today probably would have beaten, that opponent, Suarez. But hey ho, he didn't, and we are here. And that's what helped build the Suarez to say, yeah, this guy's a tough opponent, look what he did to Lyndon Arthur, etc, etc, etc. Okay? So they bring him in, and he gets starched in one round, which is, I thought he might get a couple more out of him. I didn't think he was going to go to points. We all knew that Ben was going to do it. So since he's been with Matchroom, he's been matched cleverly by Tom Dallas, who used to do matchmaking for Wasserman, moved over to Matchroom probably a few years ago now, and they're matching him in a clever way. So the next one is he's going to America. The American debut that Ben Whittaker's wanted. The American audience are more appreciative of Ben Whittaker than the British audience, which sometimes that happens. I've had it where I've had, say, more American, like ex-fighters and stuff, or people from the States support me a lot more than the British counterparts I have over here. And I'm not including my subscribers, because my subscribers are great, but I'm aware that you do come from all over the place. I think Ben Whittaker would be probably more appreciated because of his flamboyance, because of his style, by the American audience. So he's got that American debut coming up. I said he should fight Khalil Cole or the Jesse Hart guy. That's what I think. I'd more or less say Khalil Cole, because he's no longer with Matchroom, and that I'm petty like that, so it kind of proves a little bit of a point if he goes in there and he beats him. Jesse Hart put up a good fight against Khalil Cole, so that's another option, isn't it? Yeah, Khalil Cole also doesn't like to come in on weight. Ben Whittaker didn't come in on weight either. I think he come in at 182 in a 175 contest. So hopefully that WBC silver weight couldn't have been on the line because they exceeded the weight limit. But here we are. So I'd like to see him fight Cole, and then there's some suggestion, and Anthony Yarde and his team are quite open to it, that they fight him. I think Eddie's looking at headlining a card in Birmingham with obviously Ben Whittaker, and say potentially versus Anthony Yarde. So obviously you've got there's conversations to be had. I think the American fights could be made pretty easy, because I think they're just going to want the status, they want the name. So I think that business side of it should potentially be very easy for Matchroom to do. But we get back to the UK. Obviously we know that Queensberry and Matchroom have a better relationship, a lot better. And would they be all right to have, they're both broadcast by DAZN. It's just, would it be a joint promo between the two? Could it be potentially another 5v5? Or they just, loan out Yarde to Matchroom? Because like I said, it's broadcast on DAZN anyway. They've got the same broadcaster, so there'll be no issue with broadcasting rights. It's just, would it be a co-promo, which Matchroom and Queensberry have done before. I like that fight. I do like that fight. I'm not going to put any predictions in because I was getting wrong anyway. I'm sort of like backtracking on my Wardley Dubois fight one now. I'm starting to look at it. So yeah, I'm not even going to put any predictions in it. However, domestically, that would make an absolutely fantastic fight. I think you could have that fight in Birmingham, or you could have it in London. I don't think that matters where it is, because I think Yard would bring a lot of people out and Ben would bring a lot of people out. People would be prepared to travel down to London, and I'm sure Yard's people would be prepared to travel up to Brum as well. So I think that's a really solid, great domestic fight. But then what does he do next? You have to remember that Ben Whittaker's got that positioning of, I think, his WBC 2 and his Boatsi. Well, it's 1, 2 and 3. They're in that position. So he was ordered to fight Boatsi at the WBC convention, but then Eddie said, no, we're going to put him in America first. So take him out of that fight for now, but we'll look at it after. So there's been a couple of times where Ben Whittaker could have fought, say, the Joshua Boatsi, and that fight didn't happen. I want to know what's happening with Joshua Boatsi actually, because, since his fight, that horrible fight that he had, he's gone a bit Q. So hopefully we see more of Joshua Boatsi soon, a fighter that's also signed to Queensberry. Looks like we're never going to get the Yard versus Boatsi now. I've kind of just forgotten about that. But it'd be great if I hung up the mic and then tomorrow it gets tweeted that they're actually fighting. We'll see. But with Ben Whittaker, I think he could be in tougher fights because I believe in his capability. But I understand the strategy around building him safely. But the danger, and this is one thing that they've got to make sure they are pushing him up, even if it's ever so slightly, that there's going to be a point where he's going to have to take that jump and really get in there with the wolves. So sometimes, babying someone, sometimes you just got to let them run out into the wild and get that experience. But everything is about numbers, everything's about the O, even though we say that it isn't. So we'll have to see what happens with Ben Whittaker. I wish him all the best. He's a local fighter. He's not far from me. So yeah, I wish him all the best, and we'll see what happens with him. He's great with Andy Lee. I think it's a great matchup. I like Andy Lee anyway. Great guy. Ben's got a solid family around him, a supportive set of people that he's had from the beginning. He hasn't had any newcomers, any latchers on, because that's what you have to be careful of in this industry. Anytime I see him, he's always with the same people, and his father is always with him, walks proudly with him. You might even see him arguing with people in the comments if you listen to this. Hi, Tony. So yeah, so that's it from me for this week. Next week we are in Wolverhampton. I cannot wait for this absolute hurricane of a fight that's coming from Conor Walker and Eggington. It's gonna be a bloodfest. I'm gonna have the tissue there to wipe the blood off my face, because these two are gonna go at it, and I'm expecting absolute bloodbath. I'm expecting a lot from this fight. It's gonna be a tear up, and it's gonna be a great fight, and it's in Wolverhampton, which is great because it's not far from me. So yeah, really looking forward to that card. So that's the Trenches card. I think you got Tia May Ayton on there as well. Great, absolutely love her. Fantastic fighter, so much potential, so young, and he's getting people out of there as well. Honestly, great girl. If you're not following Tia May Ayton, really start following her, start supporting her. So yeah, great card next week, local to me, and then the week after we are back up in Manchester for Don't Blink, which is the infamous heavyweight clash, title clash between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois. Great card. There's some good names on there. It's going to be, got Solomon Dakers taking on Jared Anderson. Another one where Solomon Dakers is very, very low odds. They're expecting him to get starched by Jared Anderson. So that's going to be a good fight. That's a make or break fight for Solomon. If he doesn't get through this fight, the promoter is within their rights to say, see you later. This is make or break. Yes, it's tough at the top. There are too many heavyweights that you can say that Frank Stable's got in. I presume that they're going to start to wean down their stable. There's one reason why they've brought Jared Anderson over, and I believe it's because they believe he's going to beat Solomon and they want him to fight Moses Atauma. Let's face it, that's the script. But Solomon can rip up the script as he did before with Serenko. So yeah, I'm always going to back the Brummy, but I'm really looking forward to meeting Jared Anderson, and hopefully I can get a conversation with him. I did try to before, but he was moving a bit bougie, but we'll see. Hi Jared, if you're listening. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Great card, absolutely great card up in Manchester. We're hearing that Moses Atauma is due to be back out. I believe it's July the 25th, and they're going to headline him in London. I don't know if I'm going to go to that. Might do a watch along for that. Let's see how the card pans out, because you know I love my watch alongs, because I have like the best listeners. But anyway, it's Friday. I want you guys to enjoy your weekend, have fun, live a little. Honestly, if people say things and it's not for you, you can choose whether to listen, to take it in or not. Life is way too short to wear yourself down with things that don't matter. You know, look after your health, drink your water, eat your vegetables, go easy on the processed foods, because there's a lot of us that are so young and we're just getting ill and we're just dropping off the edge of the earth. But if you've got this far, thanks for listening. I think yesterday I said as at October, and I missed off the red, but I was distracted. So you know what we say at October Red. Stay ready.